The problem with modern sales is many sellers act more like robots than humans. The rise of automation means many sellers send the same boring proposal, same email to hundreds of people. And this is reflected with many sales methodologies that treat buyers like a cog in a wheel. They talk about things like budget, authority, decision criteria. While these things are important, they forget that buyers are also human. They go to bars, restaurants, have families. They cried when Mufasa died in The Lion King. So we need to connect with them on a human level because buyers are looking to do business with people that are authentic. So that's why we created a new sales framework called Cosmic. Cosmic is an acronym, and I'm going to explain each of the letters. I'm going to start with the S and the M. Now the M is material. Most sellers focus too much on the material side of things. Now these things are important, the economic impacts, the revenue, the profit, the conversion rates, the statistics, but often buyers won't buy if there's not an emotional impact behind it, which is the S, the spiritual. Now spiritual is a word that freaks people out because people think of religious extremists or people in California with long hair that smell bad. So no matter what someone's beliefs are, you need to connect with them on a human level. So another way to think about spiritual is human or emotional. Now let's imagine you're targeting a manager, right? Every manager leads a team and they're interested, yes, in their numbers and their targets, but they're also interested in the well-being of their team, seeing their team be promoted, seeing their team be happy so they're not stolen by competitors or go somewhere else. But there's also an economic impact of this because it costs 6 to 9 months of a person's salary to replace them. So the spiritual and material are connected. So now we come on to the 2 C's at the start and the beginning, which is challenge and consequence. These 2 things are connected, which I'm going to explain. So last year in London, we had a heat wave. We're not used to the heat. It was 40 degrees. That's 104 Fahrenheit for those in North America. And people went out and they started buying fans and air conditioning units. Now, the reason they did this wasn't because the fans looked really cool or they had really fast fan speed. It was because they were hot. So they had this challenge of being hot and they wanted to cool down. Now the consequence of being hot is maybe you can't sleep, right? And then that means you're grumpy with your family or your friends or your kids. You're not working as well. Maybe you're not productive at work. So that's the consequence. And then the I is for influence. So if you're in business-to-business sales, you're selling to companies, there's going to be multiple people involved in a decision. If you're selling to huge enterprise companies, that could be over 10 people. So the 2 approaches you can use is a top-down approach or a bottom-up approach. If you do a top-down approach, say in my case, I may contact a CEO. The CEO says to the head of sales, hey, you should speak to these guys. And obviously that gives me credibility coming from the CEO. But that's an ideal world. Sales doesn't always work like that. So I may go to someone more junior in the company. In my business of sales training consulting, I may target a salesperson. That salesperson has no budget or authority to make a decision, but I can have a conversation with the goal of research with that person. So I can ask them, how are you currently doing sales training? What sales technology are you using? With the answers that person gives me, I can then contact the head of sales and I've got some context for that conversation. Now, what's important with the influence is map out the different stakeholders that are involved in a buying chain. In my business, for example, I speak to heads of marketing, heads of sales, CEOs, and the way I speak to each of them is going to be very different. Then finally, we come to the O, which is open and about being more authentic. So tell you a story here about Superman. Superman in the 1980s became invincible, and what happened is people actually stopped buying his comics because someone who is invincible is not relatable and boring because all of us as humans, we all have our own flaws. But then what they did is they introduced kryptonite, which was Superman's Achilles heel and made him sick, and suddenly he became more popular. Now sales is no different. You want to admit your flaws. You don't want to pretend you're perfect, especially as we live in this era of social media where everyone's pretending to be perfect and people don't buy it. They want to buy from people who are open about their flaws. So a tactic you can do is bring up the objections before your buyer does. Recently, I was selling to a huge real estate company, and all of the companies we'd worked with before were software or technology companies. So I had not worked with a real estate service company. But what I did, I brought this up and I was open and I said, hey, most of our clients are software and technology companies. We've not worked with a real estate company before, but I still think some of this applies to you. and they ended up becoming a customer of ours because I was open with them. So overall, this framework is cosmic. The definition of cosmic is characterized by greatness, especially in extent, intensity, and comprehensiveness. So if you think about the people that inspire us, Lionel Messi recently in the World Cup, Muhammad Ali, Neil Armstrong, we don't remember them because of their material wealth or their career statistics. We remember them because they inspired us to make change. And that's what we want to do with our buyers. We want to create that cosmic connection that inspires them to make change. Go out there and be cosmic.